So good afternoon. It's welcome to Monday. This is Audrey Russo, President and CEO of the Pittsburgh Technology Council. I have a different background because I'm actually in our offices today. Very excited to be back and seeing some of the people on my team. It's almost been a year, so really happy to have our guest today, and I will introduce him formally, U.S. Congressman Michael Doyle, a huge friend of the tech community, a huge friend of the ecosystem here, and in senior leadership on many things that matter. So before we get started, I want to give a shout out to Huntington Bank for being our longtime partners in all things that we do, particularly here in business as usual, which we've been doing, as I mentioned, for a year, but also for their work in terms of supporting businesses throughout the year during the pandemic and all the support that's really needed for us to endure and thrive. So we also want to give a shout out to AT&T. They have been our partners on public policy series that we have at the council, and they've also been amazing through the entire year as well, in terms of connecting not only through the kinds of needs that we've had in terms of technology, but they actually really helped in big and small ways to make sure that they're bridging the digital divide early on as we had these conversations. And we just appreciate everything that they do to help us across the Pittsburgh community. And of course, 40 by 80, that's the wholly owned subsidiary of the Pittsburgh Tech Council. And that is what you'll hear more about in terms of our apprenticeship programs, workforce development, and of course, how we help entrepreneurs. So without two more pieces of housekeeping. Number one is that we have a chat, and that chat is there for you to ask questions. Hopefully we'll get to questions. If not, we'll make sure that there are ways for us to stay connected to Congressman Doyle. And second, this is not an opportunity to sell your wares. This is an opportunity for us to give complete attention to Congressman. So I am thrilled. For the second time this year, we've had Congressman Mike Doyle, who is with us. I've had a chance to ask how he was doing and holding up. And I'm very pleased that we have him as our leadership here. And we're going to hear in a moment just a lot about the kinds of things that he's been involved in. And he has senior leadership roles in Washington, D.C. And he told me as soon as he finishes the show, he is driving right to D.C. because there is a vote that's going to be on the floor. So welcome, Congressman Doyle. And thank you so much for always making the time for us. We really appreciate you and the work that you do. So let's just set the stage here. We also have Jonathan Kirsting. He is our Vice President of all things media and marketing. He's going to make sure that if there are any questions, we're going to get to them. So first of all, welcome back. Second of all, before we talk, about the recently passed relief bill, can you take a few minutes to talk about just your district?
Yeah, well, it's a very diverse district, and when you think about it, Pittsburgh has an interesting and unique history. In a lot of respects, Pittsburgh's been a high-tech hub for a long time. We're known as the steel city because our city led the world in processing and fabricating steel, and steel production was the high-tech industry of its heyday. But along the way, industry lost its way and stopped embracing innovation and technology, and the steel industry declined because we couldn't keep up. And so when I think about Pittsburgh and this region and the rebirth that has occurred here, in some ways, I think of it as sort of a back to basics mentality. It's about leading the way and embracing innovation and deploying new technologies. And, we've become world leaders in autonomous vehicles, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, additive manufacturing, robotics, clean energy, healthcare, biotech, and we're working to make our city more livable with a cleaner environment, better transportation infrastructure, and a more just society that brings and spreads opportunity to everyone. So in my mind, and I've lived here my entire life, I just think it's a special place in so many ways. And over the years, our caucus in the House has been developing and updating an innovation agenda for the nation. And part of those discussions have involved members from all over the country talking about what innovation means in their district. For a lot of members, innovation in their district is about new logging or farming or mining techniques. And to be honest, innovation doesn't play a big role in so many members' regional economies. So I end up spending a lot of time educating other members about why innovation and technology is important and how the benefits we're creating here in Pittsburgh can benefit not only the country, but the world. I also spend a lot of time trying to find common ground with folks so that we can move a pro-innovation legislative agenda forward, because it's so much more about any one industry. It's about a mentality of embracing change. And I do a lot of that work through the Energy and Commerce Committee, where I'm a subcommittee chairman. And I do it through the Robotics Caucus, where we try to educate members and staff about the new technologies, and through the Democratic Caucus and our House leadership.
It's great that you're representing such a diverse community and that you have the tools to be able to convey that. So, and the access to every piece of innovation. So let's talk a little bit about the new administration. But before we do that, let's talk about your senior leadership role on the House Energy and Commerce Committee. I mean, in the middle of the pandemic, we, all have a renewed understanding of the importance of telecom to both our daily lives, but also to overall business. I mean, we saw the bifurcation of people who had access and people who did not. So you now chair the subcommittee on telecom and tech, which makes us very happy. We're excited about that. So talk to us about the aspect of your work on that committee, because we're excited.
Well, I'm excited about it too. And you're absolutely right about the importance of telecommunications and broadband technology right now. On the broadband side, the pandemic has really thrown the importance of this technology into really stark relief. I mean, particularly when we're talking about students that don't have broadband access at home, seniors that can't schedule vaccination appointments online, and far too many Americans, quite frankly, who either don't have service or can't afford it. I've always had a consumer first perspective when it comes to telecommunication services. And the big question there is, how do we get cheaper, faster service to more Americans? In the context of the pandemic, we've had a breakthrough at the end of last year and in this COVID package that the Senate just passed. At the end of last year, we were able to create an emergency broadband benefit program that would provide $50 a month benefit for high-speed broadband service to folks in need. And we were able to include a new $7 billion program in President Biden's America Recovery Plan that the Senate just passed that would provide broadband service and devices to students across the country, which has been sorely needed as our kids have been learning remotely since last year. So I think what more people have realized about this technology and these services is that they can not only help generate a huge economic impact on our country, but they make our country more resilient as well. And our hope is that as we move to an infrastructure package later this year, we can include more funds to build out high-speed service throughout the country and to ensure that all Americans are connected, because clearly this isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. So the jurisdiction of the subcommittee extends beyond broadband. We also have jurisdiction over media and broad swaths of the internet economy. We've been doing hearings on misinformation and disinformation that has really inundated our society. A few weeks ago, we did a hearing regarding disinformation in the traditional cable news, broadcast news, and radio, where we talked about some of the economic issues driving those industries towards content that is not only true, but dangerous to people in our democracy. We've seen that with COVID, and we've seen it with the attack on the Capitol, January 6th. We also have been doing hearings regarding online platforms' role in spreading this same disinformation. And we did a number of these last year, and we are planning on holding a hearing later in March, I believe on March 25th to be exact, with the CEOs of Facebook, Google, and Twitter regarding a lot of these issues. So these are tough problems, and there's not easy solutions to them, but we have an obligation, I believe, to ask hard questions and try to get answers for the American people.
Oh, good. It's great. It's great that you're doing this. It has to be in many ways. We're very proud. We're very proud that we're that connected to you in your leadership role. So let's talk about the next stimulus package. Can you talk about, the discussion stand and what are your personal priorities?
Well, I think, first of all, we have a tremendous opportunity to get this done. We have two chances at reconciliation. And I want to make clear that our goal is to negotiate a stimulus package on infrastructure with our colleagues in the Republican Party. It's always better when you can do this on a bipartisan basis, and we're going to work hard to try to do that. But having said that, we're not going to do nothing. We've been trying for a long, long time to get an infrastructure bill through the Congress, and we just haven't been able to get it through both bodies and have it signed by a president. We are very, very motivated to make sure that doesn't happen this time. So the conversations about the next stimulus and infrastructure package are ongoing, and there's still a lot of work to do in terms of the process and what we want the bill to focus on. But the baseline for transportation infrastructure is the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill that we passed, the INVEST Act. That was passed as part of a broader Moving Forward Act legislation last year. That bill was a $1.5 trillion package that included important items like $300 billion for roads and bridges, $100 billion to expand transit, $130 billion to rebuild and improve schools, $65 billion to improve drinking and wastewater systems, and we've seen that problem here in Allegheny County, and investing $100 billion to deploy high-speed broadband and support adoption. So my priorities are ensuring that Pittsburgh, our region, has the money it needs to fund its biggest infrastructure priorities and challenges. We know repairing our roads and bridges is always important, but we also have to expand transit options like we did with the BRT project and creating safe streets for pedestrians and bicyclists. So we're going to work, as I always have, with our local government officials to make sure that their priorities are included in whatever final infrastructure package that comes about. As a senior member in Congress and someone that has the ear of the leadership and the Appropriations Committee, you can rest assured that Pittsburgh will get its fair share.
Anything about like high-speed rail? Are there conversations about that?
I'll tell you what, we are starting to explore some information with high-speed rail, and not only high-speed rail, but also in the context of the energy bill. We're looking at these technologies that, like an electrically powered train that no longer would use fuel, but and that's something that we're in discussions, I should say, that I think aren't public yet, with some companies and some technology that's being developed around that. Obviously, we want to see that. We hear about these projects all the time, the Pittsburgh to Cleveland thing that Elon Musk talks about and others, but I think these are all things that we should keep on the table and in mind of how we move forward. Believe me, high-speed rail, and we've just seen the challenges of traveling. There is not a nonstop flight from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C. I think there's one now. Now you can go from Pittsburgh to BWI, but the ability for us that, I used to travel by air every week. I fly down Mondays and I fly back on Thursdays, whatever the schedule is. I've been driving now for a year. I hate it, but I'm blessed that it's only a 3.5 to 4 hour drive if there's not traffic. But the ability to move back and forth has been greatly restricted. And in Pittsburgh, we've not had some of the same kind of nonstop service that we used to have the cities like Hartford, Connecticut, to Louisville. And we want to get that back. But I'll tell you what, high-speed rail also would be another way to, connect people. And we want to invest in those technologies. So, that's clearly something that's on our minds and on our agenda.
Well, you can see someone even said we can't even get direct to Philly in our own state. Right?
Yeah, well, who wants to go to Philadelphia? No, I'm just kidding.
It's okay. I think Philadelphians want to come to Pittsburgh.
That's right. So, I can understand that. We need to have maybe one-way nonstop service from Philly to Pittsburgh. No, Philadelphia is a great city. I I like to kid my colleagues from there a lot, but I work with them every day, and it's been good for our state.
It's great, but we know that Southwestern Pennsylvania is a hidden gem.
There's no
So
question about that.
can we talk about immigration? Can we talk a little bit about immigration and how, how much, pro-growth is what we're about, right? We're about pro-growth. And you and I have talked for years, right? 25% of all the tech companies across the US are started by firstborn, for immigrants, not just even first generation. And they are. Silicon Valley, I think it's as high as 42%, and it might be even higher on those companies on the NASDAQ. So, more than just filling jobs, they're job creators and they're job builders. And, we've been at this for a long time, right? Brian Kennedy on our team, myself, we've been strong advocates for immigration reform. And, we attract people from all over the world that come to do research here, that come to, do their undergrad and graduate work, and then they can't stay. So what do you think? I mean, do you think that there are thoughts now about Congress coming together to pass a comprehensive immigration bill? And I chuckle a little bit because I've talked to you about this since I've been in this role. So what's your thoughts? I mean, do we have hope? Is there light here?
Audrey, I'm very supportive of any solution that gets us to comprehensive immigration reform. I'd prefer that it's a big package that addresses everything, but I think that's looking unlikely at this point. I think the signs are pointing to the likelihood that we'll get some separate, smaller pieces of legislation that are bipartisan. I'd expect that we'll at least see protections, if not a path to citizenship, for DACA recipients and refugees for temporary protected status. In fact, my understanding is we're looking at least some of those bills coming to the floor the week of March 15th in the House. Now, how that changes, we'll pass it out of the House. How it changes in the Senate, because it's going to be subject to 60 votes, is unclear. I think we might also see some expanded visa and citizenship opportunities for some immigrants, particularly migrant farm workers. But it seems crazy to me. People come to our country and to Pittsburgh, get educated at some of the finest institutions in the world. And, the payoff for us, the bonus for Pittsburgh in that scenario is that we get to keep them here and have that talent expressed here in Pittsburgh. And instead we make it difficult for them to stay. So what am I hoping for? I mean, I'm hoping for something, anything at this point. It's so long overdue. And I feel very strongly that at least DACA recipients, for them not to have a path to citizenship, I just think is completely un-American. I want to see a path to citizenship for more undocumented people and a fix on how we address immigration moving forward. How likely that is, at least right now, I think it's probably unlikely, but I want to see a more efficient, effective, and fair visa system. I don't think we should rely entirely on foreign visas. We want to make sure that our students are prepared for the workforce, but there are things we can do to provide flexibilities for individuals who are here on visas, their spouses, and particularly for students and young people. So, we're hoping. We have a new administration. The numbers have changed a little bit in the Senate, and hope springs eternal. I think it's going to be baby steps at first, but hopefully this will lead to something bigger.
Yeah, I mean, I think better than most of us know that lumping all of this into one bill and one strategy becomes tough, right? Because
I mean, it's tough even in the House. We've been floating a comprehensive bill around our caucus, and even in the Democratic caucus, as you know, we can only lose 5 votes. That's how close the margin is in the House, without any Republican support. And right now in the House, there's virtually no support for comprehensive immigration reform from the Republicans. So that would mean we'd need every single Democrat to vote for it. And right now we're still working on that. So it's tough. I think it's more likely, as I said earlier, that we're going to see a more piecemeal type approach,
Right.
and that we can get some bipartisan support for. But we just have to continue to educate people why this is in our best interest, and that people shouldn't fear it. But it's a tough issue, no question about it.
Right. Well, we're going to continue to try to support you and arm you with what you need to make sure to help have these conversations, because this caucus, I see that someone asked a question about that. Can you tell us more about the robotics caucus? Do others in Congress know about robotics in our region?
Well, the challenge is that every 2 years we get a bunch of new members.
Right.
And when you look at the amount of members that have been in Congress 6 years or less, it's a majority of the members in Congress.
Okay.
So you form these caucuses with the goal of educating members of robotics and why they shouldn't fear robotics. Where there's a lot of congressional districts, they're not doing this kind of work. Some of them think, well, geez, robotics, that's just going to take the jobs of humans, and that's not good.
Right.
So there's a real need to educate members of Congress about, the specifics about what robotics does, how it benefits the country, how it's good for the economy, how it isn't going to take away people's jobs, and why we should embrace it. Because as we're trying to move a innovation agenda forward, robotics being part of that, we have to rely on the support and votes of members where this just isn't happening in their neck of the woods. But what we also realize is after we go through that process in a session of Congress, then we have a bunch of new members coming on board who haven't had the benefit of sitting in that caucus and hearing, we bring people in from all over the country to talk to us about what's happening in the field of robotics and how it's benefiting the country, how it's, working in medicine, in energy, and defense. And there's just so many different areas where robotics is helping us. So it's constant need of education.
Right.
And that's the goal of the robotics committee. So what we do at the beginning of each session of Congress, and we're now in the 117th Congress, meeting with these caucuses has been a little bit more difficult too, as we're fighting for Zoom space because we're competing with committee hearings and markups and the like. So it's become a little bit more difficult, but also just getting information to the new members that there's a robotics caucus, what its goals and what its purpose is. And we encourage members to join the caucus and get more information. That's gone a little slowly this session. Audrey, there's like not a million. There's 100 caucus. There's a caucus for everything in Congress. So members get bombarded with join this caucus, join that caucus, but generally members that get seats on the Science Committee, on the Energy and Commerce Committee, on certain other committees, seem to have a keen interest in that, and that's where a lot of legislation moves. That can benefit these technologies. So we try to focus on them. But generally, I mean, we've had many different members of Carnegie Mellon and Pitt and others address the robotics caucus. We had the one little snake robot that we've been using to explore, like
Howie,
that has been crawling up members' legs every year when we bring that
Howie
in.
shows it. Yeah.
And so I'm just as the founder and co-chair of the robotics caucus, it's just a great opportunity for us to let people know what's happening here in Western Pennsylvania. And they're always amazed because, there are still some that hear Pittsburgh and don't think technology. We're changing that. We're changing that culture. And I have more members saying, tell us about some of the things you're doing in Pittsburgh that we're hearing about. So that's a good thing. But these caucuses are for the purpose of educating and advancing the funding and the support for these technologies, and we see that happening, and you're seeing a lot of federal. Let's understand that a lot of companies that are here now, a lot of federal research money that comes to Pittsburgh is a result of the work we've done
Right.
with robotics here in Pittsburgh, which was a result of not only the robotics caucus, but the key amount of financial support that has flown to this district, mainly through the work of Jack Murtha and myself that have really focused on those areas for Western Pennsylvania. Jack's not with us anymore,
Right.
and
Right.
you know, I've been left with that mantle of continuing to do it, and we've been working hard to make sure that this region gets what it needs to continue to advance those
What do you
efforts.
think? So what do you think as we wrap up? We have a new administration with renewed hope, you know, on progress on key issues that impact the region. So in terms of the Biden administration, their early priorities, are there some that really stand out in terms of how it would be beneficial for Western PA?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost is it, you know, COVID's it's here. We need to deal with it. We need to get it under control. We can't have a healthy economy till we deal with that issue. It's a mandate, I believe, that President Biden was elected on, and people wanted addressed. The American Rescue Plan that just passed the Senate and we're going to vote on tomorrow is our response to get back on track and get that done. What comes next? Infrastructure comes next. It is long overdue. And when I say infrastructure, people always think immediately about roads and bridges, but we're talking about broad infrastructure bill. We're talking about broadband infrastructure, energy infrastructure, along with the more traditional means for that. Pittsburgh's well positioned to be a player in all those areas. And we want to make sure that we're getting the resources down to Pittsburgh for our companies, our research universities, you know, to not only be participants in it, but to be leaders in moving these technologies forward. I believe when you look at the energy piece of this, we're an all of the above energy center. We want to continue to look for solutions. I have an energy storage bill. I believe that when we talk about how do we get more renewables on the grid, that technology can exist here. And as we start to build energy storage systems that can store renewables and deal with the problem of intermittency to make them more like base capacity, that's going to move our country forward. We want to manufacture those kinds of technologies here in Western Pennsylvania, in Eastern Ohio, in West Virginia, in areas where people have been displaced from some of the more traditional fossil fuel industries. If we're going to be successful in dealing with climate change, and we have to do it in such a way that doesn't leave people behind. If we don't do that, we're going to fail, and we're not going to get the public support we need to move forward. So I just think our region is so well positioned to take advantage of these and to be leaders in some of the biggest challenges that our nation is facing. We've seen it in healthcare. We're seeing it in energy. The companies that are in Pittsburgh now, to a large part, has been due to some of the technology and research. Autonomous vehicles, right? Red Whitaker at CMU was doing this 35 years ago.
Right.
This isn't new to Pittsburgh. People just didn't understand that. NREC, the robotics lab, I mean, that's why you see artificial intelligence companies. That's why you see autonomous vehicle companies here in Pittsburgh. And we have to continue to embrace that technology, not be afraid of change. And if we continue to do those things, Pittsburgh's going to continue to prosper. I'm just honored to be able to play a small part in that piece of the puzzle. But believe me, the partnership between the federal government and the private sector in Pittsburgh and academia and our foundation is our secret formula for success in our region. And if we keep pulling in the same direction, Pittsburgh's going to continue to get better and better. And we need to make sure that we don't leave people behind too in our own region. There's still many parts of Pittsburgh that haven't seen the success that other parts of Pittsburgh have. And we have to recognize that, and we have to deal with that. And if we do that, then everyone's boats will rise, and we'll have the kind of city that we can all be proud of, and a legacy to leave for our kids and our grandkids for a better Pittsburgh. I have 4 grown children. They all found jobs in Pittsburgh. They all bought homes in Pittsburgh. My 2 grandkids live in Pittsburgh. I can't tell you what a blessing that is. And that's something I'd like to see for every family in our region. And we can do that if we continue to work together, Audrey. So Pittsburgh Technology Council is a big, big piece of that puzzle, part of the solution. It's a pleasure to work with you guys. And just earlier this week, I did a similar kind of Zoom meeting with the Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce. We just need to keep collaborating with one another and getting ourselves on the same page and pushing together. And I'm excited about this new administration and the ability to finally get things done. And we want to do it in a way that's bipartisan, but we are determined to do these things one way or the other because we think it's important for the country.
So do you think that maybe you can get President Biden or Kamala Harris to be on our show?
I think when they get a little less busy,
they're going to be busy. Congressman, they are going to be busy forever.
I know, but President Biden's got a lot on his plate right now, and I think there's a time we can do that, certainly.
That'd be great.
Or if not, we certainly can get key members of the administration,
yes,
to talk to us here in Pittsburgh. I'm sure I can make sure that happens. Right now, we got to get many of them confirmed. There's still hearings going on in the Senate, and the president doesn't even have his cabinet in place yet. But there'll come a time we can do it, sure.
Well, hopefully those confirmations come quickly, and we can start seeing some execution.
Yep.
Well, listen, you have been wonderful. It is a treat to always have a conversation with you. I can't thank you enough. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your friendship to the tech community. And I know you're off, you're packed, and you're ready to go.
My car is packed. It's got a full tank of gas, and next stop is Washington, D.C.
Are you driving an electric vehicle?
No, I'm not. Although I would love sometime to have I keep looking at those Teslas saying, I should own one of those, but
you should.
No, it's a Ford Escape is what I have. The Ford Escape I used to drive was a hybrid, and then they stopped making them, and now they started making them again. So I've been driving hybrid vehicles a lot, but I have never driven an all-electric car.
Oh my gosh! Well, we're going to have to take care of you. Jonathan Kirsting has, and I think Brian Kennedy as well. They have been working. Who have you been? What have you been driving, guys?
We've been hanging out with our friends at Schultz Ford. The new Mustang Mach-E.
Oh, that is way too cool.
So
I'll drive one of them anytime you can get them. Yeah, I've seen them on television. I have no idea what those cars cost, but I think probably a little above a public servant's salary. But
pretty reasonable.
I think we might be able to.
Not too bad.
You don't have to get all the bells
range
and
of those
whistles
cars. That's the key is how far can they go before you need to get them charged again. And that's one of the challenges, by the way, in our energy bill. We put a lot of funding in to have more energy charging stations throughout the country to build that infrastructure, but to also give funding to car companies to retool. I mean, is it not GM that said by 2035 they're going to make nothing but electric vehicles?
Right.
I mean, this is the future. The idea is, can you get from point A to point B?
So do you see the Mach-E goes 270 miles?
Well, let's see. DC from my house to my apartment in Washington, D.C. is 241 miles. So
you got it.
I can do it. Yeah. Just send one over.
I think, Jonathan, when you get the car next and Congressman's back in town, can you pick him up?
I will. We'll have some fun.
Pick you up and you can see the car. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. I see it on TV, it's good to see American car companies too getting with it. I used to scream at them all the time as why aren't we making these kinds of cars, way back when? And a lot of that battery technology is not on our shore. We need to start doing that here. Biden's committed to that too, so that'll be interesting to see.
Great. All right, well, I know your bags are packed and you need to get on the road. So it was a delight seeing you, okay? We can see each other in person, hopefully the next time.
Yep.
And be safe. Thank you for representing us and thank you for your leadership.
Thanks, Audrey. Pleasure to be with everyone today. Take care.
Thank you. Jonathan, who do we have tomorrow?
Tomorrow we have Aaron Morse from All Vision stopping by, talking about how we can build the cities of the future with lots of data that he maps out. Really fun stuff.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.